closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Why go out on a Friday night when Friday night comes straight to your home?
Talking about?
Join me and my A-team of top pundits. Chemistry tonight is electric. As we tackle the big stories of the day with wit, insight and fearless energy.
Man of the people.
It's all vibe.
Just a filing cabinet on wheels with a tie on.
So, order in Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, every Friday at 8, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more.
Whether it's breaking royal news,
Will, please bring us up to date.
or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons,
Very, very curious.
we bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome to State of the Nation, daily plunge into the stories shaping our country. I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, and Monday to Thursday we bring you the insights, the facts, the truth about how our country is being governed. Because what happens in Downing Street matters down your street. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Happy Friday, one and all. God knows we need a weekend. From the world headquarters of GB News, this is Friday Night Live with Mark Dolan. The weekend starts here, so bring your own drinks. The admission is free. On tonight's show, is rail nationalisation an expensive political vanity project? Should we give up our pets to save the planet? Does the political and economic chaos in France and Germany prove that we're lucky to be out of the EU? And were the conspiracy theorists right all along about COVID? And would we have been better off doing nothing? Also tonight, as Reform UK sensationally overtake Labour in the polls, is Nigel Farage now unstoppable? To fall out over those topics and many more tonight, my Friday A-team. We have broadcaster and truth bomb dropper Chloe Dobbs, BBC radio legend Liz Kershaw, and fearless political commentator Zoe Grunewald. Plus, at the end of the show, tonight's top 10 list. Labour government-themed Bond movies. You won't want to miss it. That's tonight's top 10. But first, after a disastrous speech yesterday, if Sir Keir Starmer remains this unpopular, should his party get rid of him? That's after the news headlines and someone that's here to stay, Sophia Hill.
Mark, thank you. A very good evening. It's just gone 8 o'clock. I'm Sophia Hill with your latest headlines from the GB Newsroom. Top story this evening, 3 million people have received an emergency alert from the government after forecasters issued a rare red warning for wind as Storm Dara hits the UK. This is the largest use of the system outside a test scenario in April last year. Gusts of up to 90 miles an hour are expected to batter parts of Wales and the southwest of England, including Cardiff, Bristol and Devon. This warning, in place from 3 a.m. tomorrow, calls for people to take care, as flying debris and falling trees could pose a danger to life. An amber warning is also in place for the west coast of the UK, from Scotland to Cornwall and Northern Ireland, with large waves and potential damage to homes and buildings. Heavy rain and over 100 flood warnings are also in effect, adding to the weekend's challenges. Now, in Scotland, a farm has been placed under lockdown after a cow tested positive for atypical mad cow disease. The Scottish Government has imposed strict movement restrictions on affected animals, although it says there is no risk to public health and the cow did not enter the food chain. The case in Dumfries and Galloway was detected through routine surveillance, and investigations are now underway to determine its origin. Authorities have assured the public that stringent control measures are in place to prevent any wider impact. And the European Commission President, Ursula von der Leyen, has signed a controversial trade deal with South American countries, which could have a significant impact on farmers in the UK. The deal has been met with firm opposition from several EU member states and is expected to face a backlash from the farming sector across Europe, with significant impact in Northern Ireland and the rest of the UK. European farmers have consistently protested against the EU-Mercosur deal, arguing it could lead to cheap imports of South American food, especially beef, which they claim does not meet the EU's environmental and food safety standards. And to end, the Princess of Wales has made a rare public appearance with her family at Westminster Abbey for her annual Christmas carol service this evening. The royal couple walked into the historic Abbey, where they married in 2011, with their children, who stopped at the kindness tree to hang messages in dedication to someone who has supported them during their lives. This year's Together at Christmas event celebrates love and empathy, with 1,600 guests invited. In a message sent ahead of the service, Kate said that Christmas is a moment of celebration and joy, as well as an opportunity to slow down and reflect on the deeper things that connect us all. Those are the latest GB News headlines for now. I'm Sophia Hill. I'll be back in an hour, but now it's back to Mark.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Well, it was the hottest ticket in town. No, not Taylor Swift at Wembley. Not Peter Kay at the O2 Apollo in Manchester. It was our expensively dressed Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer, addressing an expectant nation from Pinewood Film Studios. How appropriate, Pinewood, given how wooden this performance was. Still wearing the proceeds of a high-end shopping spree with Lord Ali, a besooted Prime Minister compared himself to a film franchise which put Pinewood on the map, James Bond. Unfortunately, the only licence Starmer had was to bore us to tears with yet another flowery address, which was big on poetry and thin on policy. This felt like an AI-generated speech from Britain's first AI-generated Prime Minister. Sir Keir Starmer being the human manifestation of ChatGPT software gone wrong. Our laser-printed premier, crafted from the finest cardboard, bamboozled his audience with platitudes and slogans. Even the gags failed to land, with his joke about being 007 going down as well as Greg Wallace at a Women's Institute Christmas lunch. Somebody could put together, quite frankly, a clip reel of Starmer's attempts at humour over the years and play them back to Hamas operatives as a form of torture. The Gaza war would end in an instant. The hostages returned by close of play. Free the sausages. Oh, folks, we have got 4 years of this, and our only hope is that the PM might deliver for the country by accident or something, based on the idea that a broken clock is at least right twice a day. Certainly his keenness to ignore regulations and NIMBYism to get Britain building again is a good place to start. Keir the builder. Can he build it? Keir the builder? Maybe. I've seen his helmet. Now, similarly, a goal to improve living standards so that we can enjoy maybe 0.1% of the luxury lifestyle of his millionaire mate, Lord Ali, is to be encouraged. And who doesn't want equal opportunities for all? Bring it on. But the problem is, not only was the speech uninspiring and characteristically vague, it was a missed political opportunity. Because Starmer could have used this moment to ditch his clearly failing policies and properly start again. How ironic that the king of the U-turn in opposition now refuses to U-turn in power and, as a result, is driving the country into a very deep ditch. This was a speech by committee, for a government by committee, promising not even the status quo, but further decline. This speech wasn't change, it was more of the same. More taxing, more borrowing, more bloated, failing public services, more living beyond our means, and more clobbering wealth creators who pay for everything. Like, for example, a now furious Tom Kerridge, the TV chef, who regrets co-signing a letter of 120 leading entrepreneurs endorsing Labour before the election, in what looks like the ultimate example of turkeys voting for Christmas. Kerridge and the other misguided business owners taken in by Starmer and Reeves' charm offensive are well and truly stuffed. Gobble, gobble. So, on the strength of this speech and this non-reboot, there is no way that Labour will win the next election. But so far, under Kemi Badenoch, there has been no compelling offer either from her and her party to a country which is desperate for radical change. If she's not willing to commit to a seismic Trump-style revolution in the UK, we know a man who is. Reacting to the big stories of the day, broadcaster and dropper of truth bombs Chloe Dobbs, BBC radio legend Liz Kershaw, and fearless political commentator Zoe Groenewald. Great to see all three of you. Happy Friday. Zoe, let me start with you. If Keir Starmer remains this unpopular, should Labour get rid of him?
Well, I would say no, because I think what has happened is we've had a situation for the last, five years of government where we've had lots and lots of churn, and it's not just prime ministers, but it's also ministers and secretaries of state, and that has meant that any genuine, legitimate political agenda for the radical change that you set out in your speech has just been pushed to the back of the queue. So what you have are new ministers coming in wanting to make their mark. You have lots of time wasted with political gossip. You have lots of time wasted about churn, when really what we need and what this country needs is someone who is ready to go all in on policy. Now, you can ask a question about whether Starmer's doing enough. I think that's a totally legitimate question. I think he hasn't done enough so far to give the country the optimism it needs about the future and to set out an agenda that genuinely will deal with the issues in this country. But I don't think we should talk about replacing leaders purely based on their popularity. We need to talk about them based on their competence. And I have to say, 5 months in, that's not an awful lot of time. I think we need to give it longer. And I think, at the next election, we will see if he can achieve those milestones and judge him on that, as he's asked us.
It might be a dilemma for the Labour movement in the months ahead if Starmer's ratings remain this low. And Zoe's right, he's got a mandate. It's only 5 months in. But is Keir Starmer Labour's Liz Truss?
I mean, he's pretty unpopular. And what you tend to see with Prime Minister's popularity ratings, and you can see this with a graph of all the other previous Prime Ministers from Tony Blair on the Spectator Data Hub, that once your approval ratings plummet down, they very, very rarely ever come back up. And that means that it's going to be difficult for Keir Starmer, even though he's got a lot of seats in the House of Commons, in terms of dealing with the press, to do what he wants to do. Now, I don't want the Labour Party to become like the Tory Party, where they are constantly chopping and changing leader, focusing on leadership contests all the time. And let's be honest, as you say, Mark, the public are crying out for change, but they are going to have to wait a little while for a general election. They're crying out for a change of party, not for... No, I don't see everyone on Twitter going, oh, get Angela Rayner in instead of Keir Starmer, she'll be so much better. Get Rachel Reeves in as Prime Minister instead of Keir Starmer. Get David Lammy. Can you imagine? All our taxpayer money would then go to the Caribbean. So there's no other good talent, if you ask me, on offer in the Cabinet to replace him with. So he's going to have to be our Prime Minister for a little while longer.
Yeah. If David Lammy was Prime Minister, there'd be a special box in your self-assessment form for reparations, wouldn't there? It would definitely be pricey. I'm going to say, Liz, that I disagree with Zoe and Chloe. I'm convinced that Sir Keir Starmer is a dud, and if I was a Labour supporter, I would want to get rid.
He should go. He should, because he's incompetent, and his main incompetency is, as you alluded to in your speech, is just depressing. He just knocks all the spirit and optimism out of the country. People are miserable, and we need a cheerleader. When I say should go, he could go But let me say, it's different from the French situation at the moment. I've been in France this week.
Lucky you.
It was a lot.
Did you bring me a bottle back?
Yeah, but I emptied it.
Of course you did. You're only human. I can smell the garlic from here, by the way. I'm glad you had a good time.
And because they got Michel Barnier, but he wasn't elected by his peers, by his party members. He was implanted by the president, Macron, and that was after a gerrymandered election. Do you remember it? It was hastily called, and then Macron didn't like...
A huge gamble which backfired.
Well, he didn't like the outcome of the first round, so he changed it because it looked like the RN and Marine Le Pen's party was going to take power and she could potentially become president. So he persuaded all the, you know, lefties to get together and gang up. So he gerrymandered the election, and then he put in... It took him 2 months to choose Barnier. He's in a hell of a problem now because there's no likely candidate. The difference is, and why I'm stressing this, is he was implanted by a president. It's like King Charles having chosen our Prime Minister. The party voted, and as Chloe said, the party voted for him. The people who put him there are all duffs. The caliber's really rather poor. You've got Keir Starmer, shall we now call him? I've got Angela No-Brainer.
Well, that's right. Now, Liz, let's fix your microphone because we've got a couple of crackles on the line. Okay. But Zoe, is there insufficient strength in depth for anyone to replace Starmer anyway?
I don't think so. I think there's a lot of talent in the cabinet, actually. I think...
Care to name names?
Yeah, I think Angela Rayner's really rather good. I mean, I liked Lou Hague as well. I thought she was one of the ministers who's actually getting on with things. I think we've seen quite a lot of progress behind the scenes with Ed Miliband. I think, you know, I'm sure that's not going to go down necessarily well with all your viewers, but I actually do think there is.
Do you think it was a bit harsh that Louise Hague actually stepped down from her post? It was an historic conviction. It was the most minor law-breaking you can imagine.
Yeah. I thought...
And she told the boss.
I thought something else was going to come out because I couldn't understand why they acted so swiftly, but I think actually it was possibly an overcorrection on the back of the freebies scandal that had been plaguing Labour, and I think they were worried about optics. But I don't think it was fair that Lou Hague stepped down. Actually, I think we say it was historic, and apparently it was disclosed to the Prime Minister. So, look, I think I really have to stress this. 5 months, you know, we've had a budget, we've had a really dire set of circumstances that Labour have inherited. Any leader was going to be unpopular when they preside over those kind of economic and circumstances and the degradation of public services. Labour say they have a plan. Let's give them a chance to implement it. Let's judge them by their words. That's what they're asking.
Why has growth gone from 0.5% to 0.1% since July?
Well, I mean, that's a knock... Well, because of some of the stuff that was being presumably implemented by Rishi Sunak, there's always a lag.
No, it was because they were forecasting or giving us hints about what they were going to do when they got into power, and it depressed the markets before they even won the election.
So I agree with you. I don't think Labour's message has been particularly strong. I actually think it's been...
What about policy platform? Because I want Keir Starmer to succeed, but I thought a missed opportunity yesterday to actually properly reboot and go, do you know what? We've made mistakes and we're going to take a different tack. We're actually going to get rid of red tape for businesses. We're going to stop taxing wealth creators and we're going to have growth. But there was no tangible change in strategy.
I think what Keir Starmer needs to do and needed to do from the beginning was say, look, we've had a difficult few years. It's been tough for all these reasons, but this is what the country is going to become under my leadership. Paint a really clear image. What is that? Is it making the country more equal? Is it spades in the ground? I think for a while it was supposed to be Get Britain Building, as you said, but where's that gone? You know, we haven't really heard much about that.
Well, we're going to get 1.5 million new homes.
What you need is a clear vision. Well, I mean...
When there's 1.5 million new people arrived in the last 2 years.
Although that is a Tory legacy, we should say. Chloe, what do you think? I mean, will the British... Go on.
I mean, you said Keir Starmer, he needs to paint a clearer vision about the future. And, you know, of course, the guy definitely needs help with talking with charisma and writing speeches. But the elephant in the room that he completely missed out in that speech is talking about immigration, the thing that matters most to voters, that people are absolutely crying out for action for. He says, oh, we need to have all these metrics to measure our progress on things. And then when it gets to, you know, his priorities that he brought up, he did not put immigration in there and set a number and say this is what we're aiming for. And then, of course, he just absolutely died when the press started asking him all of the questions, because they're all asking, well, what about the immigration numbers? Why won't you set a cap at 100,000 or something? And he's like, immigration doesn't need a number attached to it. We don't need a metric for that. And we're like, what on earth? He really just doesn't care about the issue.
Briefly, Liz?
You cannot plan economically or in any other way. You can't plan security, you can't plan education unless you know numbers, unless you know how many people you're dealing with, how many people you're catering for. And we don't actually know how many people are in this country.
Well, I think
and
it's
they
a
won't
concern.
admit it.
I mean, I think it's an easy win for Starmer to get the numbers down in the next 4 years. Let's hope he stays to his word and does that. Briefly, Chloe, will the British public ever like Sir Keir Starmer, and does it matter?
I don't think that they will ever like him. As I said, once your approval rating goes down, then that's it. And I mean, listening to him, it's like watching paint dry. Nigel Farage clearly is doing brilliantly. We've now seen the Reform taking over Labour in the polls. One of the huge reasons why is because the guy actually has some charisma, unlike the rest of them.
Zoe, does Keir Starmer's personality matter? Are we being too personal here?
I think it matters when you have a country that is thoroughly depressed. I think, I agree with Liz when she says there needs to be more of a vision and maybe there should have been some optimism. I think it was a mistake to go in and say things are terrible. Leave that to your Chancellor. Let your Chancellor paint the fiscal prudent picture. The Prime Minister needs to have a vision for what country
One
wants to
last
create.
word. It's going to be even more unpopular in January when we have the trial of the Southport alleged stabber, because a lot's going to come out about who knew what and when, and people are going to have even less faith in him and like him even less.
Fascinating stuff. That one's going to run and run. But it's time now for our biggest and greatest Great British giveaway this year, and your chance to win £50,000 in tax-free cash. It's the biggest cash prize we've ever given away, and here's how you get your hands on it. Here are the details for how to win 50k.
It's the biggest, greatest Great British giveaway so far, with your chance to win a spectacular £50,000 in tax-free cash. 2025 could be amazing, with plenty of treats, holidays and fun on the horizon. How would you enjoy that cash? £50,000 will make someone our biggest ever winner. For your chance to win, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. You can call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB10 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 31st of January. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Good luck indeed. Is rail nationalisation an expensive political vanity project? And should we give up our pets to save the planet? I'll be showing you my pussy after this.
Headliners. Tomorrow's papers tonight, every night from 11 p.m.
This is Miss Universe fans hailing the end of wokeness and crediting the Trump effect after a biological woman, there's still some of them around apparently, has won the 2024 crown. She's Miss Denmark, because obviously the last decade, it's just been a beast transgender smurfs from Papua New Guinea. They're the only people allowed to win any beauty contest, you know what I mean? You're not allowed to have any.
Some of the trans women have won these. You definitely wouldn't say no.
Honestly, I've seen some, but I've seen some of them that didn't, and some that were clearly just there out of
Have there been more than one trans woman? I didn't realise this.
Yeah.
Okay,
I've got a chart at home. This one isn't trans. Victoria Kjær Thielvig, 21 of Denmark. Everything about that description says attractive.
Nazis. Okay, I have seen pictures of her. She is very attractive.
Yes.
She is. Yes. I don't know exactly how to put it, but she is kind of not retro or vintage or so. She's quite an old-fashioned notion of beauty, just absolutely ice blue eyes.
No penis.
Absolutely extraordinary, clear skin and gorgeous blonde hair. I mean, it's absolutely kind of mid-70s.
Apparently, the sanity's returned to the beauty pageant industry, so they can get back to sexualising 4-year-olds and promoting anorexia like they used to. So
there is that.
She will earn an estimated $250,000 annual salary working full-time as Miss Universe, and will live in a luxurious New York City apartment as she carries out her duties, which involve glass coffee tables and rich Saudi businessmen.
Glass coffee tables. And visiting other planets and solar systems and constellations, I would imagine, in Miss Universe.
Being concerned about animals.
Yes, absolutely, and wanting to bring about world peace. I miss those days.
GB News, the People's Channel.
GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Nightmare commute? Kick it up a gear with GB News Radio. You can listen online and on DAB+ and on the GB News app. We're also on TuneIn and the Radio Player apps. From the school run to rush hour, get revved up with GB News Radio. We are the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Is rail nationalisation an expensive political vanity project? Chloe Dobbs.
I think it probably is. I'm not sure that it just seems like ideology rather than actually practicality. Now, yes, the railways, the tickets are just way too expensive. They're often not running on time. I mean, Liz has just been telling us in the break that it took her 4 hours to drive here. And if the railways actually worked properly, then more people would take the train and the roads wouldn't be so busy for Liz, which is, of course, important.
And more space for Liz in her Jaguar.
Yeah, but the thing
You've got an old school Jag, haven't you? Not a woke one, right?
A growler.
Yeah, so I've heard.
But I don't think that this is going to make the trains more efficient. The problem with the trains is that you have local monopolies, even if you bring in private firms. So, I mean, where I grew up in Cornwall, it's all great GWR, Great Western Railway. It's not like I can say, oh, I'll go on this other provider today because it's cheaper. So they have to give out these contracts. But they would be able to keep it somewhat competitive and keep up standards if they actually enforce the terms of the contracts. They never hit their targets, but they face no repercussions for it. If they said, right, if you don't get this percentage of trains on time, that's it, you're out, we're handing the contract to someone else next year, then things would actually work more efficiently. Putting it in public hands, I mean, how's that going to make it more efficient?
You are a big Conservative supporter. Was it a mistake of John Major to privatise the rail in the first place?
I wasn't alive back then, Mark. I can't remember.
It's not your responsibility.
I can't remember what it was like before that.
It's like slavery. You weren't there. Not my problem. I mean, look, I don't know, because, I mean, what people forget, Liz, don't they, is that British Rail was terrible. It was costing the taxpayer millions of pounds a week, and the sandwiches were disgusting and inedible.
And the toilets were...
They were unimaginable, weren't they? They were like a kind of French cafe toilet, just a hole in the ground, basically. And the fares, I mean, the only good thing you can say, the fares were lower, but British Rail is not a great template, is it?
No, I mean, I was thinking about this question earlier when I knew my colleagues were tonight, and as you said, if you don't know what it was like on British Rail, then perhaps they should run some trains in that style so young people can experience it.
Like a retro train. It was terrible, wasn't it? It was a terrible service.
It was terrible, and when it was privatised on where I live, I'm served by the North West Coast line, main line, and
where are you based? Where are you?
The nearest station is Milton Keynes.
Right.
So it was taken over by Virgin and immediately transformed. It was a bit old fur coat and no knickers with Richard Branson. You know, it was all red cashmere coats and red lipstick and people greeting other part. But the trains were all suddenly brand new. They were clean. They ran on time, and it's been taken over by Avanti trains now. But the pricing is still fantastic. So I do notice it as I go around the country, the discrepancies in pricing. I think how much South Eastern trains in Kent, where I've come from tonight, it's 30-odd quid with a senior rail card for the journey that I can make from Milton Keynes to London for £14 at the same time of day. So that you can't reconcile that, can you? But I do think it's a vanity project to renationalise it. You're right. There's no competition locally, mainly. There is actually on the West Coast Main Line. And I think that probably has a good effect on it. But when people are having to be kept on the toes to keep the franchise, I think it does count. The passenger, when they took the franchise off Virgin 2 or 3 years ago, the passengers were outraged because we loved the service.
That's interesting, isn't it? I mean, Zoe, the problem with going back in public hands is that we, the taxpayer, are on the hook for all that investment, all that rolling stock, all those liabilities.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think on a sort of moral, ethical level, I feel like trains, as public goods, they should be handled by the state so that the money invested in them doesn't go to shareholders, doesn't line the pockets of shareholders.
Because it's about 33 billion, isn't it, since privatisation, which is a lot of money.
It is a lot of money, and I feel like, you know, we know that in this country we have very old tracks. You know, we don't really have the infrastructure to support our modern needs. And when the money is going into shareholders' pockets rather than going back and investing in the service, I feel like that is problematic. Looking at Labour's plans, you know, I can see why they don't fill people with confidence or, you know, inspiration, because it doesn't look like it's going to make tickets cheaper. That's one of the main concerns. You know, you have concerns about what rail nationalisation used to look like. I mean, I do hope that modern governments can learn from the mistakes of past governments. I think that's something we would hope for. But I do feel like it is a step in the right direction. The biggest problem is we do need investment in the infrastructure in this country. We need more investment in our railways, because what we have at the minute is a very crowded system where if something goes wrong, it's very expensive to fix because all our services need to go on the same, you know, the same tracks. So I think there's more work that needs to be done.
It will cost billions. There's definitely arguments for rail nationalisation, but what about the issue of class, OK, and where people are on the economic ladder? Because there's an argument that this is a big investment that will benefit middle-class professionals, and actually a lot of working-class people, people on low incomes, never get on a train and won't benefit.
Well, that's why I'd also like to see investment in bus services.
Buses, yeah.
I mean, loads of people use buses. Buses are absolutely vital to rural communities. You know, they're vital for people who get to work. They're often vital for women with.
But don't you get a bit dizzy and sick on the bus? I find
I get
the diesel engine.
Yeah, I do get terribly sick.
Oh man! And then upstairs, I get beaten up by teenagers. I mean, seriously.
Yeah, I mean, there's lots of the transport in our country is not great. It needs investment, and that's why I think it's right that it's done by the state and not private shareholders who want to make a profit.
Well, I think we can all agree that we definitely need better infrastructure. Are we going to get it? Let's hope Labour can deliver. So, folks, should we? This is our next topic. Should we give up our pets to save the planet, Zoe?
No. I think we should save the planet, but I think there are so many benefits to having pets. You know, I've got a cat. I love her.
Well, I think we might actually have some footage of your cat. Your cat is called?
Peaches.
Peaches. Peaches coming in a minute. We're keeping
OK, all right.
Peaches on,
I'll keep you on your toes.
Is that a boy or a girl?
She's a girl. And
Good.
She's lovely. And, you know, there's so many proven benefits to having pets for companionship, mental health.
There's Peaches.
Look how lovely she is.
How old is she?
I'm not going to give her up. 2 and a bit years.
All right. And does she have any quirks?
No, because she's a bit rubbish, really.
Does she like the Stranglers?
Exactly.
But, you know, look, there are plenty of things we can all do in our lives to reduce our environmental impact, to think more kind of cautiously about what we're doing, what we're consuming. And, you know, we can implement that into all our practices. But no, I don't think... I mean, what are we suggesting? Mass euthanisation of our pets?
Well, I just wonder whether it's about discouraging future pet ownership. I don't think the government's going to come and collect your moggy. But the bottom line is that they eat a lot of meat products, don't they? And so that would be an environmental impact, a carbon footprint, and then they obviously mess on the pavement. Cats go out and kill wildlife.
Mine doesn't. Mine's an indoor cat.
Well, I'm glad to hear that. Well, by the way, there was a campaign in Canada to stop cats actually leaving the house, making all cats in Canada house cats, but there was a bit of an uproar about that. But if we're going to be really honest about environmental impacts, you know, pets are not great for the planet.
No, but humans aren't great for the planet either. And do you know what's really not great for the planet? Are big corporations that don't properly look after the environment. So I think we need to start with those big corporations. We do also all have things we can implement into our daily lives. You know, we can recycle, we can walk, we can cycle, all those things. But, you know, I think how much our pets eat and what they do is probably bottom of that list of priorities, really.
Yeah, I mean, this was a story that was floating around in The Guardian a year ago, Chloe, but it went viral this week. Someone got a hold of it and was very triggered. I do think at some point the sort of net zero enthusiasts will get round to our pets, don't you?
I mean, I think it would be a pretty unpopular policy if they started, you know, mass euthanising pets. If people want to do their bit for the planet by not having a pet because it's something that's not that important for them, then fine. Some people will decide that they don't want to have children because they're concerned about the comfort. But for people... You know, I always just think, you know, if you're trying to save the planet or whatever it is you're trying to do and you want to change people's behaviour, change the behaviours where there's like the least friction for them. Asking someone to give up their pet and never have a pet again if it's something that's absolutely dear to them, I'm sorry, but you're not going to get people to do that. I mean, my dog, he is my world. I cannot imagine a life without him.
What's he called?
Brody.
Brody, nice
and,
name.
You know, as a
what is he?
He's a Cocker Spaniel. He's crazy. And, you know, as a single woman living by myself, when you don't have people to come back to in the evening, I mean, you know, the love and affection he gives you is just amazing. And, you know, when I go out at night, I'm not worried about murderers and rapists coming for me. The thing I'm worried about is if someone steals my dog. I hold him dear to me. So I can't imagine anything worse in the world than someone taking my dog away from me. So there's no way. Like I don't eat meat, but my dog does. I'm not willing.
What does Brody make of the occasional male visitor? Does he growl at them?
Sorry, they're no male. I'm a nun, basically.
I'll believe you. We're going from a nun. We'll go from a nun to quite the opposite. Liz Kershaw, how are you?
Yeah, I don't have a pet. I don't run out. It's going down the same path as inheritance tax on farmers, so they'll have to sell the land and put solar panels on. I'm just bigging up this conspiracy theory now. And now we get rid of pets, and then we don't need as much meat, and then we don't need as much grain to feed the cows and the meat, and so it goes on. But in Jersey, where I was last summer, this is what the Germans did on the first day after they invaded. They asked everybody on the island to take their pets down to the quayside at gunpoint. Nobody knew why, and the Germans exterminated 6,000 cats and dogs on the first night.
That's terrible. Why?
That's the extreme.
What was the logic behind that?
Because it would mean that there was less food going to the animals, and there was more food production going to the invaded.
Crazy. Well, listen, let me reassure you. I don't think Ed Miliband is going to go that far.
You know that pets are banned in North Korea, I think, because it's seen as Western, and they have taken people's dogs and cats and executed them.
Is that right?
Yeah.
What a jolly conversation, I tell you. It's a barrel of laughs with pundits tonight, isn't it? Listen, folks, we've got so much more to come. Does the political and economic chaos in France and Germany prove that we're lucky to be out of the EU? And were the conspiracy theorists right all along about COVID? And would we have been better off doing nothing? We'll debate that next.
Hello there, good evening. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. Storm Dara is expected to bring heavy outbreaks of rain and some severe gales at times as we head into the weekend. Hail snow too for Scotland, and there are multiple Met Office warnings in force, so do stay up to date on our website for those. This is Storm Dara here out to the west, bringing in heavy outbreaks of rain alongside these frontal systems and a good squeeze in the Isobars, so very strong winds at times across the bulk of the country, particularly around western coasts. These outbreaks of rain are set to continue overnight, still falling as snow across high ground in Scotland, and we're really going to see those winds strengthen in western areas overnight too, particularly in western parts of Wales, where we do have a red Met Office wind warning in force too. We could see gusts here reaching around 80 to 90 miles per hour. So for the start of Saturday then, it's going to be a very wet start across a lot of the country. Scotland seeing outbreaks of rain, still some hill snow across higher ground as well. And similar across northern parts of England, Northern Ireland, heavy outbreaks of rain and very strong winds, particularly around coastal areas, but even inland areas seeing some very strong gusts at times. Western parts of Wales likely to see severe gales here at times, making very difficult driving conditions. And on the whole, through Saturday, there is likely to be disruption as a result of the storm. The heavy outbreaks of rain continuing. Still a very windy day across a large portion of the country, particularly around western coasts. And looking at the temperatures too later on, we can see highs generally between 9 to 10 Celsius, but in those very, very strong winds as well. That's really going to add on to the wind chill, so it is going to feel a very chilly day, particularly under the rain and in those strong winds. Through into Sunday, we do start to see the weather settle down slightly. We do have some outbreaks of rain still, particularly in eastern areas, a few showers feeding into eastern parts of Scotland. The best of the weather, or the driest and brightest of the weather across Northern Ireland, western parts of Scotland. But it's still going to be a very blustery day on offer, and we won't really see more settled conditions until we head into next week. Bye for now.
Welcome to State of the Nation, daily plunge into the stories shaping our country. I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, and Monday to Thursday we bring you the insights, the facts, the truth about how our country is being governed. Because what happens in Downing Street matters down your street. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Does the political and economic chaos in France and Germany prove that we're lucky to be out of the EU, Liz Kershaw?
Yes, and I've had this conversation with my French friend for over 5 years now, and I was being ridiculed for having voted Brexit, and people made assumptions about why, and I said, look, do you want to know why I voted Brexit? Because I saw the European Union project as a sinking ship, which was gradually imploding, and I decided, like, if you're on a sinking ship, it's best to leave while you've got the chance of a place in a lifeboat. Let's pull in the ropes. And I decided to vote Brexit because I thought it's time we left, and I've just sat back and watched. I also said at the time, all great civilisations eventually implode. You know, your Romans, your Vikings, think back the Mayans, and it's happening now. I think in 2,000 years, people will be, if there's still a human race, will be doing the history lessons and saying, it was in the year of 2024 or 2016 that the European Union really started to disintegrate. And it's happening now. It's not just, it is particularly France and Germany. Obviously, France hasn't technically got a government at the moment. Germany's having elections after Christmas, and all over Europe, the right-wing, as they're called, parties, although Marine Le Pen has very socialist economic policies, but they label them like that. But the parties that the people are waking up to and love and are criticised by the mass media are gaining strength. And it's because people are sick to the back teeth of the situation and of their politicians.
It's interesting, isn't it, Zoe, because you've got political and economic problems on the continent, particularly France and Germany. It's, you know, the EU as a project, it's not really selling itself at the moment, is it?
But we have political and economic problems here as well.
Do we? I mean, you've got like a solid overall majority for this Labour government.
But we still have challenges in our politics, and we still have challenges in our economy. You know, we had a.
But aren't we doing better than them?
I don't think we are we? Are we doing better
We've had some, over the years, since Brexit, we've had more consistent growth than the Eurozone, haven't we?
Well, no,
you know, the sky didn't fall in. Investment remains very solid.
I don't think we have. I don't know if that's true. I thought growth is, you know, lower than our EU counterparts generally, or at a slower pace.
I think since 2016, it's either been on a par or slightly above. You know, people blame Brexit for inflation, but actually food prices tracked exactly with what's happening in the Eurozone. I mean, let's be honest, the sky didn't fall in, did it?
Well, I mean, OK, we have problems, we have issues with our trade. You know, we are getting closer to the US because we are worried about trade deals. We've had issues with workforce as well. Certain sectors have had particular acute issues. Look at farming, look at the fisheries. I think there have been issues thrown up by Brexit. Even Nigel Farage has admitted that Brexit in this form hasn't really worked for the country. So I think we need to be honest about that.
Do you think there's a case for rejoining?
Yes.
Really?
I think there was a case for never leaving.
If you could press a button, would you bring us back in?
Listen, I wouldn't do it like that. I think it's important to, you know, the public voted to leave. It's important to try and bring the public along with you. I think we need an honest conversation about what Brexit has done. But no, I wouldn't press a button because that's not how democracy works. I wouldn't do that. I do think we're better off inside.
When you look to the Eurozone, I mean, we don't look over to Brussels with envy now, do we? It's not like it's sort of booming.
Some people do.
Lots of growth and everyone's got good jobs and high quality of living. It's quite the opposite, isn't it?
OK.
I mean, you've got Germany regularly flirts with recession.
Yeah.
France has got a sovereign debt crisis, you know, in the making.
Yeah. But I think what is true is there are domestic issues in these countries countries across the world, actually, across the West as well. You know, look at what the US has had to deal with. You know, even though the figures are upticking, they've still had their own issues as well. I think what we're actually seeing is, en masse, people really concerned about whether the economy is working for them, the cost of living, inflation, how there are global shocks in energy markets.
It's the same in France and Germany.
Do you not feel that the EU is in decline? It's like this ailing project now.
I'm not going to say it's perfect, but I think we work better, especially us in the UK. I think we work better when we work cooperatively with other countries.
Chloe, what do you think about this? I mean, did you vote for Brexit?
I was not old enough to vote. I was actually, at the time of the referendum, I was undecided, and then sort of a few months later, I decided that I was a Brexiteer. I think, you know, people love to blame everything on Brexit when it simply is not the case. I mean, as you say, you know, the problem, our economy is not perfect, but the problems that we've had here, they've been sort of the same or worse in the EU. I think a lot of people voted for Brexit because they saw the way the project was going, as Liz alluded to, and saw that it's just becoming more and more centralised over time. The problem with the EU is you cannot have this one-size-fits-all approach for every single country. Same trade deal, they're basically making it one country. And the way you respond to the problems that arise from trying to put a one-size-fits-all approach on countries with different cultures, different economies, is either you decentralise and give them more local power, or you try to solve the sinking ship by making the centralisation even tighter. And that is what has been going on. And it's going to... The bubble will burst eventually. It will fail.
Briefly, Les, briefly.
I was shocked. I went to a city called Amiens in France this week, and I was shocked at the street scene, at the landscape. You know...
Poverty?
Shabby, poverty, people on street corners... a friend of mine went all around Germany recently and said he used to go there in the 80s and 90s and he couldn't believe the stark contrast now. What cities that were pristine and prosperous and full of shops and colour are looking like our high streets now. We don't get enough news in this country about what's going on in Europe.
All right. Well, listen, before the break, really quick one if you can. Liz, let me start with you. Have the conspiracy theorists been proved right about COVID? Because the House of Congress in America, a subcommittee, has ruled that the most likely origin of COVID-19 was a lab leak in China, which, if you'd said that early in the pandemic, you'd have lost your Twitter account and probably been cancelled by everyone you knew. Have the conspiracy theorists been proved right?
But yet, among people I know who aren't particularly conspiracy theorists, they thought that was what had happened. They weren't convinced about these dead, wet meat markets or whatever they were.
And the bats.
And the bats. Are we going to talk more about this after the...
well, no, we're shortly... we need to crack on.
Just to say that I think a lot of what was done was very wrong. We have to wait for this hugely expensive, protracted inquiry to find out the maths. How many lives were saved? How many were needlessly lost?
Chloe.
I just think of old people who were shoved out of hospital into homes and died needlessly.
Chloe.
On most things, the conspiracy theorists seem to have been proven right, and just... Thank God for Elon Musk buying Twitter, because it was the case that you had people who were questioning vaccines, questioning lockdown, even if they were literal doctors, questioning masks, having their accounts taken down off Twitter and their voice removed. That is very wrong.
Losing their jobs.
Never go there again.
Indeed, and that's how we met, because during COVID, you were a student speaking out against lockdowns, and I had you on my old talk radio show.
That's how it all started.
The rest is history. Zoe, briefly, if you can, I mean, look, we'll be discussing this forever, and the authorities are clear. The vaccine mandates and the rollout of the vaccine, plus the lockdowns, plus masking, plus social distancing, saved countless lives and stopped the NHS from being overwhelmed. But I don't know whether that's all ageing so well. We've got the data in now. Countries that didn't have these strict measures, you've got sort of Florida and Texas in the United States, same outcomes as California. Sweden, who outperformed not only Britain, France and Germany, but their Scandinavian neighbours. Would we have been better off having done nothing?
No, because we have very distinct problems, including an NHS that was already on its knees. And I think what we had to do was make sure we protected the NHS before it got overwhelmed. You know, we've got an ageing population, we've got an NHS that's struggling. I think we actually responded too late. I think... transparency about what went wrong, you know, it needs to be very, very clear to people, because otherwise there'll be more mistrust. But I actually think we were right to lock down.
OK, brilliant stuff. Well, it's all about opinions. We've got more to come. Tonight's top 10 list. Labour government-themed Bond movies. You won't want to miss that. And as Reform UK sensationally overtake Labour in the polls, is Nigel Farage now unstoppable? That's next.
Britain's Newsroom. Weekday mornings from 9:30.
Maria, potholes, the bane of everybody that uses a road, whether you're a car driver or a cyclist. As a cyclist, are even worse. How have we got into this situation where our roads are in such a bad state?
Well, part of it is to do with actually our climate. In somewhere like, say, Sweden, like the snow will fall on the ground, it will stay there for months. Whereas here, we've got what's called a freeze-thaw climate, where the water comes down, then we might have a cold snap and it freezes, and the water within the pothole will then expand and make the pothole bigger. Then we might have a mild spell, and then that process repeats. So, we do actually need extra funding to acknowledge the fact that, we just live in a climate where we're sort of particularly vulnerable to potholes.
Why? I mean, the fact that this happens, these weather conditions happen, is no great surprise to anybody. Why has the problem been ignored for so long?
I think what's happened is we've had like short-term funding. So it's like, oh, there's a pothole, let's patch it up. Oh, there's another one, let's patch it up. But the patches aren't actually really that strong, so then they break down again. So, really what we need is to have roads completely resurfaced, and then they'll just be pothole-free for a very long time. And that really is how funding should be. That's the direction funding should go in, as opposed to just sort of like dribs and drabs here and there.
Do you think this government are going to be good for the motorist, or is there indeed a war on the motorist still?
The different parties come in and they've all got different policies that they wheel out, then they cancel the policies, and then there's so much lack of transparency. Like, for example, with the pothole issue, sometimes the government, whichever government is in office, will do some big showboating about how they're going to give X amount of potholes, and you still think that sounds really good.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, and as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Weekdays on GB News. Wake up to breakfast every day from 6 a.m. Followed by Britain's Newsroom at 9:30. At noon, it's Good Afternoon Britain. Followed by Martin Daubney from 3 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
As Reform UK sensationally overtake Labour in the polls, is Nigel Farage now unstoppable? Chloe Dobbs.
Well, he seems to have all of the momentum behind him. They had a big week where you've got them taking over Labour in the polls, finding out he's got a 27% chance, up from 20% a week before, of becoming Prime Minister. Rumours of Elon Musk sending him a heck of a lot of money. So it all seems to be going their way. He's not completely unstoppable, though, because it depends whether he organises the party the way that he needs to make it actually ready to come into government, should in 2029 they actually have a shot of it. Ben Habib decided to break ties with the party, and one of the reasons he said he left is because he hasn't organised in the way that he would want them to at this point, have a full shadow cabinet, full proper team. I think I give them a bit of slack. It's very early days. They're moving forward very quickly. There's a lot going on that they're trying to manage with a small team. They've got time to organise themselves, but they've got to keep the momentum going and keep getting money in to grow the party.
But do you want them to have that momentum? Because you are a Conservative supporter, aren't you? Are you worried?
No, I'm a Reform supporter.
Are you?
Yeah.
When did you make that change?
Ages ago. You just clocked onto that.
Blimey! I thought that was an exclusive. Zoe, what do you think about this? You've got skin in the game, haven't you, as somebody that I think is identifiably on the left, because actually Farage is going after Labour voters too.
Yeah, and I think, he was always going to go after the Tories first and go after Labour voters, and then I think it was probably a slight it's a slight mistake for Labour to underestimate reform strategy during the election. Do I think... what I would say is very, very easy to, and this is a phrase they always use in Parliament, but I can't think of any other phrase, snipe from the sidelines when you are not in government. It's very easy to point to policies...
Made a career of it.
Yeah, me too. And to say, you know, I wouldn't do it like that. And also, you know, to come up with policies that maybe don't necessarily add up. And I think there are a lot of incongruent things in Nigel Farage's or Reform's platform. You know, they want low taxes, but they also promise big, wide-reaching changes. And, you know, Nigel Farage wants low immigration, but we know that a lot of our public services and our industries are at the minute dependent on that immigration. So I think there are a lot of things that just don't really add up. But I do think it is easy when you're in opposition, and especially when the Tories are hopeless and they're not organised at all, to see how Reform could take some of that support.
Well, yeah, are the Reform UK really the Lib Dems of this era, where they're basically they're just telling us what we want to hear, you know, free beer every Tuesday? Is it back of the fag packet politics?
Well, it is with Nigel, but I can tell you that they are getting very organised, the Reform Party. They've got all sorts of innovative ideas for spreading the word.
OK.
I know that. A bit of advice for Nigel Farage: don't make it all about you. I think he's great, he's the best speaker, but... if you don't take advice, it goes to your head.
Wise words. Speaking of which, and finally, as Sir Keir Starmer joked in yesterday's speech about replacing 007, tonight's top 10 list is Labour government-themed Bond movies. In at number 10, it is Dr. No, Economic Growth. Number 9, On Her Majesty's Socialist Service. Number 8, Tool Raker. Number 7, The Illegal Immigrant Who Loved Me. Number 6, The Man with the Golden Cervix. Number 5, Taxes Are Forever. Number 4, A View to a Bill. Number 3, Sky Falling Approval Ratings. Number 2, Now Time to Die. And at number 1, Never Say Labour Again. There you go, that's tonight's top 10 list. Patrick is our top number 1 presenter. He's next. Patrick, what have you got for us?
Yeah, great show, Mark. OK, so we were going to get tough on immigration, but it turns out that we're going to need to import hundreds of thousands of immigrants to build those new homes we need. Well, where are they going to live? Diversity training in the workplace has led to a load of false racism allegations, and I've got loads more as well. We're getting stuck into Justin Welby at 9.
Can't wait. Patrick's up next. I'll see you tomorrow at 9.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, good evening. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. Storm Dara is expected to bring heavy outbreaks of rain and some severe gales at times as we head into the weekend. Hail snow too for Scotland, and there are multiple Met Office warnings in force, so do stay up to date on our website for those. This is Storm Dara here out to the west, bringing in heavy outbreaks of rain alongside these frontal systems and a good squeeze in the Isobars, so very strong winds at times across the bulk of the country, particularly around western coasts. These outbreaks of rain are set to continue overnight, still falling as snow across high ground in Scotland, and we're really going to see those winds strengthen in western areas overnight too, particularly in western parts of Wales, where we do have a red Met Office wind warning in force too. We could see gusts here reaching around 80 to 90 miles per hour. So for the start of Saturday then, it's going to be a very wet start across a lot of the country. Scotland seeing outbreaks of rain, still some hill snow across higher ground as well. And similar across northern parts of England, Northern Ireland, heavy outbreaks of rain and very strong winds, particularly around coastal areas, but even inland areas seeing some very strong gusts at times. Western parts of Wales likely to see severe gales here at times, making very difficult driving conditions. And on the whole, through Saturday, there is likely to be disruption as a result of the storm. The heavy outbreaks of rain continuing. Still a very windy day across a large portion of the country, particularly around western coasts. And looking at the temperatures too later on, we can see highs generally between 9 to 10 Celsius, but in those very, very strong winds as well. That's really going to add on to the wind chill, so it is going to feel a very chilly day, particularly under the rain and in those strong winds. Through into Sunday, we do start to see the weather settle down slightly. We do have some outbreaks of rain still, particularly in eastern areas, a few showers feeding into eastern parts of Scotland. The best of the weather, or the driest and brightest of the weather across Northern Ireland, western parts of Scotland, but it's still going to be a very blustery day on offer, and we won't really see more settled conditions until we head into next week. Bye for now.
Despite the morning rain, it'll be a nice, warm, cosy day ahead. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
It's the biggest, greatest Great British giveaway so far, with your chance to win a spectacular £50,000 in tax-free cash. 2025 could be amazing, with plenty of treats, holidays and fun on the horizon. How would you enjoy that cash? £50,000 will make someone our biggest ever winner. For your chance to win, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. You can call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB10 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrants must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 31st of January. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more.
Whether it's breaking royal